Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, September 10th, and we on the European account. We've got a decent amount of stuff to do. Let's see what we can trade. I have a challenger friend, so I'm gonna need to try and challenge a friend really quickly. And then I can get rid of mage class cards or warrior class cards. I'd prefer to play warrior than mage, so win 5 games in any mode, challenge a friend, and warrior class cards. Let's come over here and spectate Deadshot and see where he is in his game. Because if he's about to win, that's not too far away. If he's about to lose, that also doesn't matter. And we'll cover some of the news while we're at it. We have a game on Steam called Bonkies, B-O-N-K-I-E-S. It says it's... What is this, actually? It says it's local multiplayer and co-op to begin with, so it's already not something.
I'm almost out of cards.
It's like building Tetris.
Do not fear power.
But the players have hover universe. They have hover jets, and so you've got to build. What I'm seeing is a team effort to build a spaceship. With these little different shapes. And it looks like a mobile game. And it looks like it's just this one spaceship. Okay, I'm seeing a couple of things now. But it really does look like it's an early access game for $9.99 that barely has 4 or 5 levels in it, if I was to guess. And it's the first game from this developer, so kind of unsurprisingly, we have a game on Steam not worth talking about. GameIndustry.biz has an article. Australian game site that runs charity gaming marathon for a disadvantaged family. Player 2 is looking to raise $4,000 for the Terry Kempis Foundation. That's all they have to say about this. This is like a really one sentence article from GameIndustry.biz. Jeez. I guess that really tells you what GameIndustry.biz's focus is that they just don't care about people or charities, so they'll write a 1 sentence interview on it, but that's it. 1 sentence article on it and nothing more. Moving on, we'll probably talk about that charity a little bit more, and it's kind of an Australian based charity thing. Also, I retweeted that Jenna Bain, the widow of Total Biscuit, one of the developers is running a charity sale where 100% of the proceeds will go to her because Jenna Bain also suffers from cancer. As Total Biscuit passed from that, and she's trying to get treatment. Also, Total Biscuit did a voice pack for, I believe, StarCraft 2, and they're going to retroactively put all the proceeds that they got from that voice pack to her too. So they are doing quite a lot to be very supportive and helpful for Jenna Bain, and also her son, Total Biscuit's son. So I felt that was a sale worth retweeting. I retweeted it before I knew that the proceeds were going to Jenna Bain, to be honest, but I'm very happy that is the case, because otherwise I would have had to come back and said I was an idiot and I should have investigated more, and I apologize. Let's see. Let's see. Now I'm trying to challenge a friend. See, I don't know if toggling this does anything at all. There you go. Let's see. I sent out the challenge. Hopefully he responds. Thank goodness. And I'll play Mech Warrior while I'm at it. Now I can just play the game and cover the news. Gamatsu has an article, Persona 2 New Cinema 11th Elizabeth trailer. This is probably not... it's called Persona Q2 New Cinema 11th. I don't know what this is. It might be a cell phone version of a Persona game. You're telling it like all the characters are chibi-esque and low polygon, so yeah, I don't think it's a direct port or remake of Persona 2. Yeah, yeah, it's a 3DS game. Okay, that's what it is. Alright. So I didn't really need to look at the trailer, but I did need to figure out what kind of game it is and what it's coming out for. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article, Level 5 announces Tokyo Game Show 2018 lineup. The full list is Fantasy Life Online, Inazuma 11 Eras. Inazuma 11 Eras is the soccer game. Yokai Watch 4 for the Switch. Fantasy Life Online is iOS and Android. Inazuma 11 Eras is for the PS4, Switch, iOS, and Android. Yokai Watch 4 is for the Switch, and Yokai Watch Metal Wars is for iOS and Android. That's a pretty small lineup for level 5, but might be relatively big for how big that company is. I'm not sure exactly how big level 5 is. I've heard of them, and clearly they've worked on a couple of at least Japanese popular things. But yeah, they may not have done too much for the Western world. Let's see. Play this. And then this.
I'm fast and furious in your face!
We've got a game on Steam just called Bingo Bango, which is a platform jumper. It's like a one-screen Unity game, very simplistic things you would have seen as a cell phone game. Let's see, 10 achievements for 99 cents, and I'll most certainly assume that this is the first game from this developer. Yeah, pretty bad. But in reading what Steam considers straight up trolling, I think Steam is even more open-minded than I am as far as whether or not a game should or shouldn't be on their store. Like, I would include the extremely low effort games in things that should just not be allowed. But Steam really doesn't seem like they would. They just want to get rid of things that are clearly trolling instead of things that are just bad. I think though, if I was to guess, and this is really probably just a jaded opinion, I think if Valve can ever get a handle on getting rid of the straight up troll games or keeping them under control, they are eventually going to have to go back and say, look, some of these games never sold. These games have sold less than 10 copies in over a year. We need to clean up our shop, move them to a list, like a blacklist basically, of just like we're not willing to promote or advertise this game. Inherently, I guess that is already the case, because the only people who are seeing the extremely low effort games are people like me who are looking at every single game that's coming out, whereas most people never even hear about them. For example, Deadly Zone is on early access and on Steam, and it's just an asset flip survival zombie in the forest hunting gathering game. Early access, 10% off for $8.99. I think they probably need to fix the end user license agreements issue too. Like, there's a lot of extremely low effort games that are demanding people agree to utilize, and I don't feel like that should be the case. Like, I feel like unless you're a AAA publisher or you can make a specific appeal to Valve, why you need to do an extra EULA, everybody should just be held to the Valve EULA, and that's it. But then again, I also feel like all end-user license agreements in the United States and around the world should just have to be registered and standardized throughout the government. It'd be really nice if there was only one cell phone contract that all cell phone companies used, because it was government mandated and registered, and that way people can't make little changes. They can't in some way pull some shenanigans. Lawyers can say, we know this contract backwards and forwards, we know how this is going to work, we don't have to fight the same lawsuits over and over again because the contract is slightly different and thus has to be reinterpreted.
I'm lost and furious!
This will be 7 if I do this. TechRaptor has an article. Super Seducer 3 announced 3 days before the launch of Super Seducer 2. Which, okay. Clearly the Super Seducer developer is going to keep on doing his thing, and I think as long as people keep on buying it, whether for a joke or a troll or whatever, he's gonna keep making money by doing these things. Let's see. Play that. That being said, I kind of wouldn't be opposed to playing all of the Super Seducer series, as long as they don't devolve into just garbage. I mean, you kind of already know they probably are garbage, but I would probably play them just out of curiosity. So I'd be part of the problem if I was rolling an extra cash to waste. Like, there's better games almost certainly to be out there. Alright. This and this and this. Some random legendary minion. Gamatsu has an article. Bandai Namco trademarks Katamari Damacy reroll. With an update on this article. Let's see. Bandai Namco has registered a trademark for Katamari Damacy Encore in Japan, which appears to be the Japanese counterpart to your European Katamari Damacy reroll trademark. Katamari titles tend to have different names in Japan. For example, Katamari Forever was called Katamari Tribute in Japan, and Touch My Katamari was called Katamari Damacy no Vida. So, seems like there's going to be a new Katamari Damacy game, which is interesting because Donut County was basically that game already. Or similar enough that a lot of comparisons were getting made. Okay. I have this like corrupting mist that I think is gonna kill my character anyways. So I'm gonna go and hit this. Just keep on playing. In the turn. I'm still playing just my friend here for Challenge a Friend. It's been a rather long game. Next we have a game on Steam called Lawless Lands. Let's see if that look great. Suffering from dark screenshot syndrome and being an RPG Maker looking game, which those are two combinations you don't run into very often. Usually an RPG Maker game is bright and colorful, but they've darkened everything out. Interesting. Early access 15% off for $5.09. No, thank you for that. And let's see. Is this yet another developer who has not released anything else? No, this developer has released some other things, but they all look horrible. So, leave that alone. Hit that, hit that. I have to remember there's no rope when playing a friend, so I don't want to waste that time. We already talked about Dead or Alive 6 coming out in February. Things moved around on me. Where was I? I'm just like all over the place. Here, so let's just... I guess I need to probably move back towards the left side of my browser. Like the new option I'm using for closing duplicate tabs seems to have messed me up in some way. There's a game called Touhou, Touhou, Big Battle. It's also got some Chinese characters in front of that. It seems like it's a kind of 2D sprite characters, with little anime chibi girls fighting in large groups. Each group has like its own flag, and there's like one leader that's directing them. So yeah, it looks like an interesting little battle game. Can't immediately say that it's bad quality. Seems like this game probably has a lot of different abilities and effects. But it says it's in English. It's single player, multiplayer, and online multiplayer. Early access, free to play. Let's see. Looking here at the recent updates, it says about English version. This game have two languages, comma, Chinese, comma, English, all squished together. We're so sorry we start to work for the English version too late, so there will be a lot of things didn't complete, but still could. play, I think. We will try to fix it in the next 2 to 4 weeks. Can anybody want to help with translate? So yeah, a really, really bad, rough translation to English, almost certainly. So yeah, I can close that tab pretty easily. Let's stir. Register issue. I have no idea what he's asking about that. I'm gonna say it worked. Because I think he's asking me if it didn't register. Of course, chatting. We need to now play warrior. Back this way, and play. What is he saying? You had 2 HP, you should have survived after Hellfire because of the mistress.
None can escape my fury.
Victory or death!
Oh. Whatever. Like, that's gonna be the end of that chat. So I need to get back over to the left side of my news, and it seems like now when I open a tab, it opens right to the right of the tab I'm on, which seems odd.
Job done.
But okay. So let's start covering this news. The decent chance here I'm not going to get into much of a rant. This story is such a mess. Like, it really is such a mess for yeah, let's see. Maybe intentional, but could be a flaw in the mechanics, since lifesteal should work the same way. I don't even know what he's talking about. Clearly he's a better Hearthstone player than me. This story has been such a mess, and this is also why the chat, by the way, is blacked out over here in this side, is because I don't want people talking to me through battle.net and it distracting from people talking in the chat. In this case, since I was playing him, it's a slightly different issue, but there have been cases in the past where people friend me on battle.net and then immediately try to chat to me knowing that I'm streaming. But moving on, Gamasutra has this article. 2 Riot employees depart after defending controversial PAX panel. So this is a continuation of that story.
Monsters behind you!
Depart is not accurate, at least for one of them, because one of them was definitely fired. The question, I guess, becomes then whether or not the other person was fired or not. This is, in a lot of ways, the Jessica Price story all over again, where and the ArenaNet story all over again, although there's slightly different beginnings to those 2 stories. Systems designer Daniel Klein and communications associate Matthias Lehman, that's Matthias M-A-T-T-I-A-S, Lehman L-E-H-M-A-N, Daniel Klein K-L-E-I-N, Daniel D-A-N-I-E-L, in case anybody needs to spell that, were let go, according to Gamasutra. Both of them were let go, fired. Like, that's part of the problem with with the English language is there's way too many different ways to say you were fired, you were let go, you were laid off. They do slightly mean different things. Like being fired is usually for cause, or sometimes you're fired for not cause. Being laid off is generally an indication that the multiple people are getting laid off at the same time, and so it's not a personal reason that you're being fired. This clearly is a personal reason in the sense that their response on Twitter was not respectful again. Let's see. We can, for the most part, skip over the panels and the discussion there. I think most people who are reasonable can say that it's a bad idea for several different reasons to have panels in which they were going to have one-on-one sessions with people who could potentially be hiring at Riot, and those people were going to be looking at people's resumes. That is just not an appropriate type of thing to segregate and say only women and non-binary participants can enter into those panels for lots of different reasons. In fact, so much so that there's a decent chance, although I doubt that they will choose to pursue this, but there's a decent chance that they violated federal law. Because in, I believe it was New York State where this took place, you're not allowed to segregate public events, which include convention centers. Let's see. And see, this is really the response to those panels, if I can get off on a slight tangent, is, I think, just more indication that when the first accusations about sexism in Riot's workplace came out, the CEO should have just said, no, this is just a Kotaku hit piece designed to cover up the fact that it's the anniversary for Gamergate, and the fact that Kotaku was heavily involved in Gamergate. I know our fans, and our fans have faith in us. I know our employees and the employees that work for us know that this isn't true. We have a great HR department, and they do their job very well. And had any of these former employees actually filed a complaint to HR, we would have dealt with it immediately, but that's not what they did. Instead, they became disgruntled employees and sat on these stories until they could release them at the time to try and attack us. Let's see. The way Gamasutra writes this article is really short, but I guess being short kind of also keeps Gamasutra from editorializing or adding their own opinion too much into it.
Well played.
Riot put it in a statement that that these departures are independent from our efforts to evolve our culture. Our culture remains our top priority. We remain committed to taking steps that we need to become a leader in diversity and inclusion. So they still very much are, to use the phrase, bending the knee to SJWs and saying, well, we fired these people, but we still are on SJW sides, and we still are definitely
Job's done.
Definitely trying to change our culture, and we definitely were at fault for some things. Like complaints I really never felt like were legitimate in the first place, and I still don't feel like it. Maybe that was just because that was my first reaction, and I'm can't get beyond that. But it seems like for a company that I believe has over 10,000 employees, the number of complaints and the type of complaints were incredibly low. So yeah. In the end, it does definitely go to show that it's very difficult for Jessica Price to say that she was fired because of sexism, and her male co-worker was fired because of sexism. No, they were fired because they were being rude to customers or potential customers on Twitter, which, like, sure, trolls may troll you, and your right response is to block them. The wrong response is to let them rile you up and get you to go on long tirades. And that's what's not getting reported here, is the fact that it's not like a one tweet response that is questionable. It's a long 5+ tweets at 240 character responses defending this. In all honesty, once they committed to having segregated panels, there needed to be basically no response. If people are upset about it, whatever, you just don't respond to it. Just like, we're gonna do it there. You let Riot respond to it. The one thing you can do that's worse than a "we've heard your concerns but we're not changing anything" type response is to give a bad response, to give a insulting and rude response.
Defend the gates.
I'm kind of glad, on a personal note, that I don't play League of Legends, though. Like, for a couple reasons. I don't think I'd enjoy playing League of Legends. Anyways, I feel like it'd probably be a very long and time-consuming game, much like Hearthstone, if not a lot more time-consuming. But if I was a fan of League of Legends and all this stuff was going on, I really feel like my love for League of Legends would have been very soured here. And that's the kind of damage control that Riot needed to try to have done, is don't sour League of Legends. Don't make this a game that has a black mark on its name. But because they again bent the knee to the Kotaku article and admitted they were wrong, which never works, they are now in this terrible position. The right response for Riot would have been, we're just gonna focus on making games. That also was probably one of these articles I would have preferred to have waited a little bit before I covered, but I need to get these tabs in the right place. Gamma Sutra has an article. China's video game licensing freeze could last another 6 months. I would not be surprised if it would last a lot longer. It was like 4 years plus that they said no video games in China at all. No video game consoles. Let's see. Let's see. This entire article breaks down to: the government reportedly intends to grant the Communist Party Propaganda Department the ability to issue new licenses. Implementing the change could still take between 4 to 6 months. Like, I bet it's more than that. And if Chinese games start getting licenses, that really doesn't mean anything about any other game developers. And it's no surprise that we're seeing more and more Chinese games come to Steam. They literally can't sell their own products inside their own country. That's pretty crazy. Hey, we've got a game on Steam called Legend of Assassin Jungle, which I recognize this game because it was a week ago that this extremely low effort developer released Legend of Assassin Egypt and Legend of Assassin Siberia. So nothing really more needs to be said about that. Don't play those games. Putting out 3 of basically the exact same game in an effort to maximize profits, I suppose would be what you're trying to do. Okay.
I strike.
GameIndustry.biz has an article. The German Consumer Association warns Sony over, quote, customer hostile PSN terms and conditions. Sony could face legal action if it fails to heed complaints. Let's see what this is really coming down to. In a cease and desist letter reportedly sent to Sony, I'm not going to try and pronounce it in German, the agency, I'll call, found 3 areas in the terms and condition of PSN which were incompatible with the law. First and foremost is the customer hostile policy regarding prepaid credit on the platform, which expires after 24 months if left unspent. Okay, I honestly feel like that should be the law everywhere. Like in the United States in particular, that is a major thing that people get scammed on, is buying gift cards and then losing the gift cards or not using them in a year, or not using every single penny on in a year, so losing the remaining balance. Additionally, the agency has complained about how the clause which finds parents accountable for any costs incurred by their underage children spending money on in-game purchases, again, should not be legally allowed. Particularly when the systems are designed in such a way that you don't even have to log in, you don't even have to put in a code to spend money. Like that they're clearly banking on the idea of damage and healing of your hero power. That wouldn't really do anything. Do I have any mechs? Like if I attack there, I die. So let's play this. And let's see. Go ahead and attack here. And then attack here. And then the only one that could get hit, I think, is this one. And I didn't move fast enough. Finally, criticism has been leveled against Sony's policy governing a consumer's right of withdrawal. The agency found that there's no indication that the customers must explicitly agree to forgo this right without completing digital purchases. The final paragraph, if I skip down here, says this is not the first time Sony has been called out for the terms and conditions in PSN. In April, the Norwegian Consumer Council filed a similar complaint regarding the right of withdrawal against Sony, Origin, and Steam. Complaints were later dropped, however. And the right to withdraw is the new law, I believe, where you can't immediately just opt people into tracking and selling and using their information. And honestly, I think a lot of people who updated their software in terms and conditions for the right of withdrawal really just updated in a very weird way, where it's just saying, well, then you can't use our software if you don't agree. Just that. And I don't believe that's the intent of the law, and we may see more laws for that. This arguably is probably all good stuff, like stuff that Sony should have its feet held to the fire with. It's a shame that the European Union has to be the one always to try to give any kind of consumer protection. If only, I would say, some of the countries like Canada and the United States could bring our ideas of freedom of speech and freedom and combine them with the ideas of consumer protection and control of industries to the point where they don't become giant monopolies. We could potentially have a nice little merger of policies there. But it's kind of ridiculous that for every one thing you like for the country's doing, you dislike, probably you're going to find two other things you dislike. Moving on, we've got a game on Steam called Arcane, A-K-A-N-E. Says it's a cyberpunk gore violent game. Let's see. What is this? It's a little 8-bit graphics in the cyberpunk world. And it's a top-down hack and slash and gun shooting, just destroy everything on the screen type game. It seems pretty intense. And you buy different swords, and apparently you buy different guns, and apparently you buy cigarettes.
Well played.
I guess in a way it's a lot like Robotron with or Smash TV. Might be a better. There's some kind of system in it where you can kill everybody on screen pretty well. This does not look too bad. I don't like that it's your standard 8-bit fighting game. I don't like the way the graphics look there. But I could overlook that. Arcane, A-K-A-N-E. It's 25% off for $2.99. Seems like there's only 5 enemy types, so it might be a pretty short game. It says it's rated M. And it's the first game from this developer. But that visual appeal on the thumbnail and the general story and visual appeal in total does have me at a point where I'm thinking to myself, yeah, this should be something I should play. Let's play a couple of games with Death Rattle Hunter. So I'm gonna keep Arcane on the wish list. First game to actually make it to the wish list. Eurogamer has an article. Remember UA Bowl? Someone's made a documentary about him. Yeti, I believe, is known for getting the licenses to video game movies, like House of the Dead, perhaps, and then making really cheap movies. The speculation is that it had something to do with getting like the German government to fund or refund fund the production of the films, and so it somehow was profitable. I'm not 100% sure how, but yeah, he really doesn't have too much relevance to the video game industry, just because somebody gets a bunch of licenses for a bunch of games that at the time would have not gotten movie licenses anyways, and arguably even now it's questionable if most games should get movie licenses or not.
Job's done.
Like the Warcraft movie, for example, that didn't really do a great job, and the Assassin's Creed movie didn't do a great job. The Tomb Raider movie didn't. The new Tomb Raider movie for the reboot series came out and it wasn't that good. Like none of them, no video game movies have ever really mattered for a very long time.
Access denied.
Well, speaking of Tomb Raider, the Shadow of the Tomb Raider game is out, and so PC Gamer is giving it an 84. I'm certainly in no hurry to play Shadow of the Tomb Raider, as I found all that extra stuff on Rise of the Tomb Raider to be unnecessary, and I found the actual single player experience to be long and boring and uninspired and kind of just the exact same thing as the original Tomb Raider game, but worse. The end paragraph sum up verdict of PC Gamer says, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, a great focus on raiding tombs and massively improved stealth combat, making it Lara Croft's best modern, one of Lara Croft's best modern adventures. Now, I would argue semantics here. Like, there's been 3 games, so one of includes what? The Tomb Raider reboot, and that's it? Or you're just saying all 3 of the 3 games that are modern? Shadow of the Tomb Raider also lets you unlock a low polygon Lara Croft model like Rise of the Tomb Raider let you do. Not really anything worth mentioning there. But 84 is pretty high for a score, so that's interesting and intriguing. I'm now looking at TechRaptor's review of the game, and we'll see if it concurs or doesn't. Yeah, they gave it an 8.0 great with their summary. Let's see, can I do this? That would be 4. Yes, I can. We can do that. That works pretty well. The summary is playing more like a massive expansion to Rise of the Tomb Raider rather than a new entry in the series. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is still a solid, if derivative, game. See, that kind of scares me away because I didn't really like Rise of the Tomb Raider. It's going to take me a couple of years before I would decide to want to get to it. But it'll probably take a couple of years before it gets down in price too. The pros are Lara Croft is still a great character, smart puzzles, fun platforming, fantastic stealth, and it's beautiful. The cons are a dull story, underwater stealth is bad, it doesn't utilize new features enough, no additional gameplay modes. I'm not sure that I personally want any additional gameplay modes. In fact, I don't have to say I'm not sure. I'm 100% sure I don't want any additional gameplay modes. and forgettable soundtrack is the final con. But they're still giving it an 8.0, so even with the cons, it seems like it's really good. Now I'm at Your Gamer's review, and this is probably the first big AAA game to come out. Final paragraph on Your Gamer, because apparently they don't give scores, says Shove the Tomb Raider ends this reboot on much the same note as it began, which for its fans may not be such a bad thing. This is well crafted and polished experience, and when the game actually gives you full control and leaves you alone to seek out quieter mysteries, it can render you wide-eyed with wonder. And this Tomb Raider may have motivation and purpose and a vague semblance of an emotional arc, but it all rings hollow, particularly when elsewhere there's repetition and an overall lack of new ideas. This Laura has forgotten herself and forgotten the joy and the thrill. Yeah. I think Shadow of the Tomb Raider probably is in a good position to end this trilogy and say, we did that trilogy, it worked well, but it's time to bring back the old lore we love, the one that was more fun, more acrobatic, not this stealth killer with a bow character, somebody who's fighting dinosaurs and doing ridiculous things, not somebody who's just always falling down and getting hurt. Like, they just made her too hardcore for her character. It would be equivalent of if Mario came out in a hardcore game. It's just not the character we knew. OpenCritic has an average score of 81. Don't talk about OpenCritic too much. They really haven't done much to talk about. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is ranked in the top 16.6% of games scored on OpenCritic based on 71 scored reviews, 77 reviews total. Apparently you can hype this game or tweet this game or share this game. 75% of critics recommend this game out of 77 reviews. Let's see, 89 contributors contributed, and 100% of them recommend this game over 9 contributor reviews. Like, I'm not 100% sure how this all breaks down on OpenCritic. The thing here is it doesn't feel like the thing I thought OpenCritic might be is the place where video game critics like me, small-time critics, could be heard, but that's really not the case. So, like, what they do instead on OpenCritic is they look at everybody's big time. So I'm seeing like Giant Bomb's review and PC Gamer's review, and they're saying it's mighty, scoring 84 or higher, whereas those that rated it strong, scoring 83 to 75, include, I believe that's Destructoid's logo, and I can't really place any of the other logos. And then there's 9 reviews that give it a fair score of 74 to 66, which certainly this whole system seems oddly weighted. And then a weak score, 5 reviews gave it a weak score, scoring 65 or lower. And then like Ars Technica and VG247 and I believe Polygon and Kotaku have not issued a score at all. Interesting. So I still think OpenCritic might be very helpful for consumers, but it is just weird. It's just a weird one to try and figure out how the system works and what's expected from it. And that, I believe, is the point here. Let me, I don't think I started my alarm clock. Nope, I have like 2 minutes right now left, so this is a good point to break up this recording. So, yes, I have to resolve myself to the mob mentality with Rise of the Tomb Raider. I'm not super hyped to playing it right now. If somebody was to gift it to me, sure, I would totally be fine with playing that. Although, I have no idea when I'd find any free time to put it out and scheduled and all, but I'd try something, certainly. Try to get it out there as fast as possible. But on my own time, I'm not going to be super hyped to play that for at least a couple of years. I need a break from Warcraft. And at some point I wanted to try and go back and play at least some of the older games. And see, I don't think that the reboot trilogy now is going to just end and we're not going to see any other Lara Croft games. I would also say that there's some weirdness in the fact that Lara Croft doesn't seem to appear in any other games. Like, why isn't she in a fighting game at this point? Why isn't she an unlockable character in Final Fantasy? Why isn't there any kind of cross promotion at all with that character? Anyways, what I'm gonna do in between this recording and the next is switch over to the Asian account, and yeah, that will leave us some work to do on Wednesday. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game, or support me on Patreon. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.